After the cold winter months, nature comes to life with the arrival of spring. This is of vital importance not only for societies that survive on hunting, gathering, and agriculture, but also for other living creatures on Earth. Throughout human history, various ceremonies have been held to emphasize the importance of this cycle. Mesopotamia, the cradle of civilization, and all other nations around the Mediterranean Sea have held ceremonies to mark the arrival of spring, with various gods of their own beliefs taking the leading roles. In Mesopotamian culture, the descent of Tammuz, the god of fertility, into the underworld and his reappearance symbolizes the cycle of life in nature. With Tammuz's descent into the underworld, plants do not flourish and animals do not reproduce. The god Ea causes Tammuz to return to the earth halfway through the year and unite with Ishtar, the goddess of war, to revitalize nature. In this mythic narrative, Tammuz's union with Ishtar symbolizes the sprouting of seeds, and Ea symbolizes the sprouting of these seeds with water. The belief in Demeter, also present in ancient Greek and Roman mythology, is also related to the cycle of life in nature. The name Demeter is the earth that grows the soil. The name of his son Pluto means the seed hidden in the earth. In this story, Hades, the god of the underworld, kidnaps Persephone, the daughter of Zeus, and takes her to the underworld, and the fertility in the world is cut off. Zeus arranges for Demeter and Hades to meet and make an agreement for the goddess to take her daughter with her for a third of the year in order to restore fertility in the world. This agreement is celebrated with a meal at the goddess' palace in Eleusis. The origin of this summer festival, celebrated by both Muslims and Christians in the Middle East and the Balkans under the name of Saint Yorgi, should be sought in the cultures of Anatolia, Mesopotamia, and Central Asia in the early ages before Islam and Christianity. In the region called the Fertile Crescent, the revival of nature was celebrated in various festivals organized in spring. In these celebrations, water and other beverages, various agricultural products, animals, and similar bloody and bloodless sacrifices were offered to the gods. In addition, incense was burned from the bark of various fragrant trees in these celebrations, which was thought to provide communication with the gods. Seasonal changes related to the revival and growth of plants were symbolized with grain, and a communal meal was eaten at the end of the celebrations. Hıdırellez, which is an extension of these celebrations carried to the present day, is actually a seasonal transition holiday. Seasonal festivals are among the ancient traditions of communities living in the Middle Belt. Hidirellez in Turkey, Mihrikan in Iran, and Easter in the Christian world are examples of seasonal holidays. Ancient Turkish beliefs and seasonal holidays. Throughout history, Turks have come into contact with different cultures and consequently accepted various religions. In recent times, Turks have embraced Islam in large masses. However, the Turks have continued to keep the beliefs, customs, and practices of their ancient religions alive in various ways, albeit partially. The most important traditions in which we can find traces of the Turks' ancient beliefs are Novruz, celebrating a new year, and Hıdırellez, celebrating the transition from winter to spring. When we look at the practices in Novruz and Hıdırellez celebrations, it is seen that these traditions originate from ancient Turkish beliefs. Let's briefly talk about these beliefs in order to comprehend the meaning of Hıdırellez traditions. The cult of water, one of the ancient Turkish beliefs, has a very important place in the traditions of Novruz and Hıdırellez, which are unseasonal holidays celebrated by the Turks. The elements that make up the universe, namely earth, water, air, and fire, have formed the main center of various beliefs and practices in many cultures on Earth. Water, one of these four elements, is one of the most basic needs for the survival of humans, animals, and plants, and the continuation of life. Because of this feature, water has become a symbol of fertility. Like the earth, water is also considered as the feminine element, the mother. It has gained a meaning that contrasts with fire, because it extinguishes it, but complements it, because it nourishes and grows the tree needed to light a fire with water. Water is thought to have a spell-breaking, purifying quality. Ancient Turks believed that every spring, lake and river had an owner, that is, the spirit of water. Under the influence of these beliefs, the festivities held on Hıdırellez were usually held near a water. In addition, many beliefs and rituals such as looking at the water, drinking the water brought from the spring, jumping over the water, sprinkling water on people, washing hands and face with the new day water, watering animals have taken place among the Hıdırellez traditions. Tree cult greenery and trees, especially the rose tree, have an important place in Hıdırellez traditions. The origin of this tree element in Hıdırellez traditions is related to the tree cult, one of the ancient Turkish beliefs. The universal tree in ancient Turkish beliefs was thought to be connected to the underground, that is, to hell with its roots, to the earth with its trunk, and to the sky, that is, to heaven with its branches. This tree is sacred because it is the pillar of the sky. This sacredness attributed to the tree constitutes the source of the narratives related to derivation from the tree in Turkish mythology. Because of the cosmic and sacred meanings attributed to the tree in ancient Turkish beliefs, people used a tree that they believed to reach God as an intermediary in order to get rid of any illness, distress, disaster, to be healthy, to achieve abundance and fertility, or to ask for the realization of a wish. God knows the human condition through the tree and helps him/her through the tree. Practices similar to the Saltma rituals used by these trees can be seen quite widely, especially during Hıdırellez. We also find the roots of this tree belief in African societies. For example, the daily practice of hitting wood, which some people do in daily life, has its origins here. When large trees attracted lightning in stormy weather, primitive societies believed that these trees were connected to the sky. So they would gather around these sacred giant trees and hug or hold them to show their intentions. Holding the tree because they believed it provided a connection to the sky or the divine has today evolved to hitting the wood. Fire cult. The cult of fire, one of the ancient Turkish beliefs, has an important place in the seasonal festivals of Novruz and Hıdırellez. Fire is another of the four elements that make up the universe, also called Anasiri Erba. Fire is also needed to survive in the cold Central Asian steppes. Therefore, the Turks sanctified fire, which they thought was a gift from God, but they did not deify it. Turks prayed to fire as a superior power, a spirit that helped people, and offered sacrifices to fire. For the Turks, fire is a purifier, and evil spirits are expelled by fire. The tradition of jumping over the fire, which is still practiced today in Hıdırellez celebrations, is related to the fire cult, one of the ancient Turkish beliefs. This practice is done in the hope of making a healthy and peaceful start to a new year by cleansing from evil and disease. However, some researchers say that this fire cult is entirely related to Zoroastrianism and emphasize that it was passed on to the Turks from there. Cult of ancestors. The cult of ancestors is one of the most widespread beliefs among Turkic communities. The basis of this cult is the belief that ancestors protect the members of their families through their spirits even after their death. With this belief, Turks respected their dead ancestors and offered sacrifices for them at certain times of the year, at their graves, or in caves considered sacred. These behaviors are a result of the idea of ensuring that the spirits of the ancestors help them. we can see that the beliefs and practices that have turned into behaviors as a result of the respect for ancestors continue today, mostly around tombs. In addition, the fact that the Hıdırellez festivities in Anatolia today are held in the tombs and mausoleums called Hıdırellez, many of which are believed to be the resting place of a great person, is a result of the cult of ancestors. Cult of Hızır. One of the important roots of the Hıdırellez tradition, which is accepted as the day when Hızır and İlyas meet and celebrated as a festival in the Turkish cultural geography, is the cult of Hızır, which emerged as a result of the integration of the ancestor culture, which has a very special place in ancient Turkish beliefs, with Islamic beliefs after the Turks entered Islamic culture. The Turkish nation sees Hızır as a person who has achieved immortality by drinking life. He is thought to be a great person or a prophet who travels among people, distributes abundance, fertility and health, helps those in need, rewards good deeds and punishes evil deeds. We can see traces of this belief in many folk literature products, from proverbs to idioms, from legends to legends. In both Turkish folk beliefs and folk literature, Hızır is imagined by our nation as a cavalryman in green or white clothes, with a gray or gray hair, with his face sometimes uncovered and sometimes covered, usually with a limp, with a spear or whip in his hand. The fact that Hızır, who is an integral part of this image, is on horseback and has a limp, is based on ancient Turkish beliefs. According to Turkish folk beliefs, Hızır can appear before people at unexpected moments and make various wishes, and as a result of his response, he rewards or punishes people with abundance and fertility. The perception of Hızır as equivalent to abundance and fertility forms the basis of Hıdırellez traditions. Thus, beliefs and practices related to this are exhibited during Hıdırellez festivities. In Central Asian Turkish communities, almost all kinds of developments that herald spring are welcomed with love, and some of these signs have gained a sacred significance. Crocus blooming as the snow melts, birds such as storks and cranes returning after their long migrations, and animals such as deer and roe deer are known as blessed creatures for Turks. As a matter of fact, Yusuf Has Hacip describes the arrival of spring and the revitalized nature in 18 lines in the 4th chapter of his Kutatkul Bilgi, in which he expresses the bright spring season and the praise of Bura Khan the Great. The camphor is gone, the black earth is born with musk, the world wants to adorn itself with adornment. In this verse, it is clearly emphasized that the white snow, which represents the winter months, is gone, and the earth comes to life and smells fragrant. Let's talk about the belief in Hızır and Hıdırellez. Hıdırellez is known as the day when the prophets Hızır and İlyas, who have achieved immortality, meet by a water or under a rose tree. The belief that Hızır rushes to the aid of people in distress on land and İlyas on the sea is a common cultural value of all communities celebrating this holiday. Turks are a land-based society. In this respect, Hızır, who has settled in our spiritual life as a saint from Central Asia to the Balkans, stands out in our world. Hızır, on the other hand, is similar to the great spirits, persons or beings seen in the pre-Islamic period in terms of some of his qualities, although not by name. As a matter of fact, this phenomenon, which took place in the pre-Islamic Turkish belief system, continues to live in the person of great people and saints by being reshaped due to the respect shown to ancestor spirits. According to the belief in the Turkish world, the prophets Hızır and İlyas have their meeting on May 6, which awakens nature, and Hıdırellez festivities are also celebrated today. According to Sufi sources, Hızır can appear as a person of any age, from 7 to 70, or he can take the form of a bird, such as a crane or a rabbit. According to the widespread belief in the Turkish world, he is named Baz, and can reach his destination immediately with his horse. On the other hand, in our civilization, the gray horseman Hızır is the equivalent of Santa Claus. In fact, both mythological heroes show themselves on the occasion of the New Year. In fact, according to the cyclical calendar, the Turkish New Year is Nowruz and Hıdırellez, and the hero of that day is Boz named Hızır, who is believed to bring abundance and fertility to the earth, visit homes and distribute health and happiness. Marco Polo records that the Tatars called this seasonal holiday white. In South Azerbaijan, the Ederlezi Turks consider February to be the month of wolf mating and call it the month of the prophet Khidr. Iraqi Turkmens call Hidirellez Hıdırellez, Hıdırellez or Hıdırzinde. Among the Crimean Turks in Dobruja, this holiday is called Tepresh. In Macedonia, it is called Ederlezi or Ederlez. In Kosovo, Hıdırellez is referred to as Hidirellez, Hıdırellez or Hıdırellez. Hıdırellez, which is called Nabi holiday in South Azerbaijan, is called Ali Haydar holiday among Teblis Turkish tribes. Hıdırellez, which is called Hıdır Nabi in the Van region and Eriçe in the Yozgat region, is also more commonly called Hıdırellez, Hıdırellez, Hıdırellez in Anatolia. Hıdırellez was a very joyful and fun spring festival in Old Istanbul. The curiosity for this holiday was so great that even those who could hardly find anything to eat in the evening would not refrain from participating in the Hıdırellez festivities. In Istanbul, the administrative center of the state, although state institutions, schools, and shops were open on Hıdırellez, strolls, the countryside and the streets would turn into a crowded fairground. Only a few old chiefs and a few old chambermaids would remain in the workrooms of government offices. Banquets have a very important place in Turkish culture in terms of belief. During Hıdırellez celebrations, cauldrons are set up and meals are eaten collectively. In Old Istanbul, the meals to be eaten in the countryside on that day have a special place in the Hıdırellez tradition. People prepare rice pilaf with lamb, stuffed leaves with currants, pine nuts and olive oil, semolina halva with debris, and pita bread with cheese. These meals would be eaten in the countryside as a family or as a gathering of spouses, friends, relatives, and neighbors. The most important dish of the old Istanbul Hıdırellez was lamb. Muslim people living in Istanbul until April 22 considered it a sin to eat lamb meat. Therefore, Muslim butchers would not slaughter lamb. On winter days, lamb was only available at the butchers in Beyoğlu. Muslim and Christian butchers on the Istanbul side also slaughtered lamb for Christian customers until Hıdırellez, but sold it secretly. For this reason, all Istanbul Muslims, poor, middling, and rich, would buy half a lamb or one lamb for their homes on April 22, depending on the number of family members and their income. The ladies would cook and prepare the lamb for the night of Hıdırellez. As a result of this tradition, on the day of Hıdırellez, soldiers in all barracks in Istanbul would be served lamb pilaf and semolina halva. There were also feasts for the school children at the Koutane. Harbiye engineer and property school students would be served stuffed lamb, halva, and salads. Thus, on the day of Hıdırellez, which was thought to be blessed and auspicious, the people of Istanbul used to get closer, and social unity and solidarity were ensured. On the morning of Hıdırellez, a pile of old mats or thick paper would be formed in a suitable square in the neighborhood. It was very auspicious to burn old mats in this fire, because any bad luck and misfortune that had entered the house in any way for a year would always find a home in the old mat. For this reason, these jinxes could not leave the house without burning. This pile would be lit in the evening, and especially young boys and girls would jump over the fire 3 times each. The people of Old Istanbul believed that jumping over fire was very beneficial. They believed that a year's worth of misfortunes, calamities, and burdens would remain on the other side, spill into the fire and never find their former owner again. that the person who jumped over the fire would not be bewitched, would not be touched by the evil eye, and that his body would be healthy and agile. Thus, the new year was entered healthy and clean. On the morning of Hıdırellez, people would hang one of their belongings, such as a yemeni, shirt, handkerchief, etc., on the rose bush with a pot at the bottom, and if they wore or used that item the next day, they believed that the person would be healthy and have a beautiful color for the whole year. It was considered a sin to sit indoors on Hıdırellez. People would get up early in the morning, open the doors and windows of the houses wide open and ventilate them. As a result, it was believed that the blessings of Hızır would enter the house. It was also considered auspicious to keep the windows and doors of kitchens, warehouses and storerooms open on Hıdırellez. Lastly, modernization and the old Hıdırellez celebrations in villages have been transformed, and collective celebrations are almost non-existent. Despite the transformations, there are many traditional practices on Hıdırellez. Yes, dear friends, we have examined the belief of Hıdırellez in detail and shared it with you. I hope it was useful.